Thank you everyone for joining this morning. I'm Mayor Ashley Stolzman, and I'm so sorry to have to meet with you under these circumstances. On behalf of the entire City Council, I just want to extend our deepest sympathies. This is such a difficult time, and you have suffered an unimaginable loss, and we can't begin to understand how you're feeling. You're an incredibly important part of the Louisville community, and we want to help you rebuild as quickly as possible. We're still in a state of emergency and we won't have all the answers today, but City Council and staff are working diligently to get answers for your questions. We're hosting these virtual listening sessions so that we can start to collect all the questions and ensure that we're working on the right things for all of you, what you're thinking about. The purpose is to hear directly from you and the immediate challenges you're facing. We tried to coordinate these with smaller neighborhoods, so your friends and neighbors could all be together and ask questions that you have right now in an intimate setting. I do want to let you know that in the attendee list, I do see that Denver 7 News and maybe a few other news outlets have got a hold of our link. So if you're not comfortable sharing information with them on the link, please email me directly. I apologize for this. We're trying to keep it as close knit as possible so people feel comfortable, but I just wanted to make sure you knew that that had happened. Each of our sessions is 60 minutes and staff is going to give a brief overview of what is in process, and then we're turning it right over to you for questions and answers. Joined with me this morning, every council member wanted to join, but for open meetings and getting it posted as quick as we can, we're going to do the sessions with just 2 of us at a time. And so joining me this morning is Council Member Debbie Fahey in your session. And I don't see her on quite yet, but I'll give her the floor when I see her get logged on to join. And so thank you everyone for coming. And I'm going to turn it over to our City Manager, Jeff Durbin, to introduce the flow of things today.
Great, thank you, Mayor. I'm glad we have a lot of attendees today, and I couldn't say it any better than the Mayor did as far as how we're all feeling about this. I had the distinct pleasure of starting this position right in the middle of this whole event, and what a heartbreaking way to start a new position. But I'm actually really honored, and I'm excited to help through this process with you because this is so important, the work that we're doing. So we have a number of staff on, and we'll go through, like the Mayor noted, a brief update of where we're at, and we look forward to talking to you in more detail. First of all, evacuation order and re-entry. All of you should know by now that re-entry into what we've been calling the hard closure areas has been opened up to property owners. If you haven't yet picked up a placard at the Ascent Church, that would be your first step. If you are having issues with, we've heard about some people where their, family members are out of town and somebody who doesn't necessarily own the property, maybe a relative or something wants to come by and check the property. We'll accommodate that. Just come by the Ascent Church and we'll work with you on what you need to get to the property. When you do visit the property, please be very careful, both going through these neighborhoods as well as if you're on your property anywhere. There are still some hot spots out there. There is a lot of debris. There are nails. There's broken glass, a lot of hazardous materials. So please exercise all the caution you have when moving through there. We have some materials on our website as far as cautionary things that you should consider before going in there and as you're walking about. So please check that out before you go in there. Reverse 911 and evacuation. There were some failures there. I am very concerned about this, and I assure you that we will be looking into this. This is something that we need to do better, and we will be having an after-action debrief to really dive into where those failures happened and why they did, because that's something that is unacceptable to me, and we will be working on that. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to our Deputy City Manager, Megan Davis, for some words.
Megan, I apologize. Just before you get started, we got Councilmember Fahey set up properly. So Councilmember Fahey, did you want to say a few words to the group before we turn it over?
I would just thank you for setting up this meeting, for having everyone present. I understand City Manager Durbin was just about to explain what our downfalls were, but I would like to reiterate what our successes were. We had a very low casualty and fatality rate, and I am so pleased with how the city has handled it. The first responders, the city staff, you as mayor, and I thank you all for, let's move forward quickly and efficiently. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Fahey. And so Deputy City Manager Davis.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just echo the comments of City Manager Durbin and Mayor Stolzman. We are here for you. We have our entire staff behind you as a community. And this is, you know, we're here to work with you and we're here to support you. And we want to be here for you during this horrible time of need. And so I'm going to talk just a little bit about some of the other things that we're working on right now. First, I want to talk about communication. We are working very hard to communicate to the community at large, as well as those of you who have experienced home loss or damaged homes. We are developing a list of those residents. So if you have not received this invite directly, if, for example, if someone passed it on to you and we don't have your email address, please reach out to us through our Marshall Fire email address, marshallfire@louisvilleco.gov, to let us know, because we will continue to send specific communications out to those residents whose homes were lost or destroyed in this disaster as we move forward. I also want to talk a little bit about debris removal. We're working on some preliminary efforts around debris removal. This will be a very significant, a substantial effort and process. It's going to take some time. It's a 3-step process or a 3-phase process. And right now we're in phase 1 of the debris removal, which is really the spoiled food dumpsters for those who were evacuated from their homes and needed to dispose of some of those immediate items. The second phase of debris removal is pending. We're working to see if we can coordinate this jointly across the entire Marshall Fire area, which would include the town of Superior and unincorporated Boulder County as well. And the second phase includes things that are in the right-of-way and on the streets, the very large items, including vehicles, other large items in the right-of-way. And we should know in the next 2 weeks, or have that process underway, I should say, in the next 2 weeks. So we wanted to make you aware of that. If you did have a vehicle or other large items in the right-of-way that you're concerned about what will happen with them. So those would all be a part of this debris removal process. The third phase that, again, we're still kind of working on understanding and defining, we also would like to do a coordinated effort, would be including everything at the home sites as well as the foundations. And as you can imagine, there are a lot of hazardous materials at those home sites. And so that debris needs to be handled carefully. And so we are looking to do that in a collaborative manner so that we can mitigate the environmental impacts, meet the environmental requirements of agencies like CDPHE in a consistent manner. And so that's the approach that we're hoping to take, and we'll continue to communicate as we put together plans for that effort moving forward. The next thing I want to talk about are concerns about trash and utilities and property taxes. We do want to let you know and assure you that with regard to trash, hard closure areas are no longer being serviced. So any of the areas where homes have been destroyed are no longer being serviced, and water and trash utility accounts with the city will automatically be canceled. So that's underway and that's happening. You don't need to worry about any water that may have been leaking from your homes and pipes during the actual event, or that account moving forward. And finally, we know that the assessor is also working on lower total tax valuation by removing the valuation of these buildings for homeowners. I want to just just share. I know some people are probably, you know, some might be near town, out of state on this call. And we have had a lot of multi-jurisdictional support in this effort. This is not something with this major of an incident that the city was able to handle on our own. And we're really fortunate to our neighboring communities and partners that they have stepped in to help with everything from the actual response to the incident, the ongoing, you know, kind of management of the issues that we've been facing. And we're assured that they'll continue to work with us and support us and help us as we move through recovery. So we just want to thank our neighboring jurisdictions across the entire Front Range in the state for stepping in and helping out our community. And we know that people of Louisville and the Louisville as an organization, we help others too. So we know that we would do the same for others. So we're grateful for their partnership. All right, I'm going to turn it back over to City Manager Durbin.
Thanks, Megan. I'll echo that a little bit. In my short time here, I am truly impressed with the dedication and hard work that I've seen from all the staff within this organization. It's really been remarkable, the tireless work that they've been putting into these efforts. And I want to ensure you that the entire organization is committed to this recovery effort. We want our residents back. We want to rebuild. We will rebuild. The library is open. The library has computers and printers and Wi-Fi if you need access to those resources. The rec center is open and there's water there. There are lunch programs there. The Public Works Department is working tirelessly to try to clean up debris out of the streets and snow management and get our water system in a good place. Police Department has been working tirelessly on security and monitoring security in all these neighborhoods. We're doing patrols through all these neighborhoods on a routine basis. And City Hall, of course, remains open and we're all ready to serve. We're here for you. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Lisa, our interim planning director.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lisa Ritchie, and I'm the interim planning director in building safety. I just want to let you know that there are no words to express my sorrow to you all. And I know many of you personally, being a Superior and now Louisville resident for more than 13 years, or through my work here at the city. And so I want you all to know that I see your faces, your families, and your homes in my mind as we work to get you all back home as fast as we can. And so with that, I'm here to provide a bit of an update, on what we're working on in our department. So damage assessment teams, they've completed the preliminary list of structures that were damaged and destroyed. We released that information a couple days ago. There are links to it on the city website. The number that we were still working on is 553 homes destroyed with an additional 45 damaged. The assessment process has been ongoing this week, and we are finalizing new numbers and making sure we've got all of that right. We're hoping to re-release some new data very, very soon with updated numbers. There is the link on the city's website if you need to self-report damaged or destroyed structure that was not included on the preliminary list. Damage assessments, again, remain ongoing. They're still preliminary. And please feel free to contact our department with any questions on any of the damage assessment, particularly if you have a placard placed on your property. You feel free to call our department with exactly what that means. The best way to reach us is 303-335-4584 or directly at building@louisvilleco.gov regarding those placards. So as far as what we're working on, we are looking at the rebuilding process and permitting requirements. We will have more information in the coming days and weeks. We don't have all of our decisions yet, but we do understand your interest to get started. We're planning on online meetings next Tuesday for affected homeowners and the building construction professional community to talk more about this rebuilding process specifically. So we do hope to have more substantive information to share as early next week. Please keep an eye out for email invitations to the homeowners as well as advertised on our communication channels. Additionally, at this time, we are evaluating potential changes to building codes and other policies in place that we have to help facilitate and encourage reconstruction. And so we'll have more information to share on that soon. Thank you all. With that too, I guess either pass it back to Jeff, sorry.
Great, thanks. At this point, Megan Pierce is our economic vitality expert.
Thank you. And to all of you that are here, my thoughts are with you. It's always been an honor to serve the city of Louisville, and it will continue to be as we support you in recovery. I'm the city's liaison to our Disaster Assistance Center. So if you have not been there yet, it's at 1755 South Public Road in Lafayette. This is for residents who have lost their homes or have had severe fire damage. So we strongly encourage you to start there as a first step in the process. It's open daily from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. There's information for connecting with the state, FEMA, all the insurance providers are on site there. You can also talk to human services, mental health advocates. There are donations available, COVID testing. It really is set up to be a one-stop shop. So we do definitely encourage you to get there. And the city of Louisville also has a table. So we'd love for you to stop by, check in with us, share any questions that have come up. We also do have flyers, some of the contact information and detail that's been listed today. We have there on flyers for you so you can help keep track of that information. Again, if you have questions following Disaster Assistance Center or about the Disaster Assistance Center, please email the Marshall Fire at louisvilleco.gov or the call center at 720-824-3100. One of the reasons we're really asking you to connect with us either through those means or at the Disaster Assistance Center is that we are capturing all the resident information in a map so that we can associate your contact with your address, any questions that you have for us that we're working on, and then also to help with this forward communication that we can directly communicate with you about rebuilding, recovery, things like debris removal. So right now we're pushing out all our communications to the broadest level, but as we go forward, we're going to need to narrow that and be able to reach out with you directly. So one thing that you'll do at the City of Louisville table at the DAC is meet with one of our staff there. They'll take in your contact information, get it associated with your address in the map and walk you through those questions. So back to you, Jeff.
Yeah, that's the conclusion of our brief staff comments at this point, Mayor.
Thank you very much. And so the rest of the meeting is really to hear from you with any comments and feedback or questions that you have. We won't be able to answer every question today, but we are taking down every question today and we'll try our best to answer anything we already know the answer to. And so just for folks who joined right after the beginning, just on behalf of the entire city council, we're here for you. We want to help you and we're here working for you. And so we need to know what you need. So please tell us. And also for folks who may have joined late, I know in the attendee list, we did try to keep it just with the neighborhoods so that it would be an intimate, close discussion. But I just want you to know that there are some folks from the news on and things like that. So if you're not comfortable sharing information in this setting, please email me directly, email us directly, and we'll get in touch that way. And so the first, also, if you've not done Zoom before, if you're on the phone, you can raise your hand by dialing *9. And if you've logged in, you can find a raise hand button at the bottom of the panel. And there are a number of people with their hands raised already. And so just keep your hand up and we will get through everybody in this hour. First up, we have Patty and John. It looks like they lowered their hand. So we'll start with Susan Nettle and Patty and John. If you wanted to, Nadell, sorry, Susan, if you wanted to re-raise your hand, please do. Susan, go ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
We can. Hi, Susan.
Hi, thank you so much. I would, a few questions. One is, can we start bringing contractors like an engineer to assess things in like next week? And if we can, how can we do that? That's my first question.
Well,
my second, sorry, you want to answer that first?
If that would be okay, Susan, if we answer them as we go that way, we can get things we know answered and things we don't, we'll turn to the next staff person or write down and get an answer for you quickly. So I'll turn that over to our interim planning director, Lisa Ritchie.
Great, so thank you for that. So our understanding at this time is that while phase 2 cleanup is going on that Megan was talking about earlier, while we're doing the right-of-way cleanups and things generally, we're not going to be permitting a lot of activity. That being said, you do have access to your homes now that the hard closures are lifted. So I think if you have specific questions on exactly kind of what types of work can occur out there, please feel free to email Marshall Fire at louisvilleco.gov. Jeff, do you want to add more than that?
Yeah, when it comes to the homes that are partially damaged, getting a contractor in there, contact our building department. And Lisa, can you share that number again?
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, especially for the homes that are partially damaged, say, kind of outside of those most deeply affected neighborhoods, absolutely. I think that work can happen more quickly. Our number is 303-335-4584 or building@louisvilleco.gov.
And so contact the building department, coordinate with them as far as those buildings that are partially impacted. As far as the buildings that are a complete loss, if you want to get in there with a contractor at this point, just to observe, to check things out, go to the Ascent Church. They can work with you as far as those placards. I would say the same for if you want to get in with your insurance adjuster to look at the property. If we have provisions for getting placards to insurance adjusters directly, so they can stop by on their own. If you want to stop by with a contractor, feel free to do that. We'll work with you. What we're trying to avoid is having a lot of contractors go in there on their own and creating problems for people by looking for work and those type of things. So we'll work with you to accommodate your needs in terms of getting into your property and taking a look.
Okay, that's terrific. That's super helpful. I do also want to ask you, do you want to, is it possible that we can just get our own debris removal, or are you really discouraging that? Because one of the people, I've got somebody that's willing to do that for me. And I just want to know if you would give a permit for that, or you're saying, no way, you need to wait.
So we're working, yeah, thank you. We're working through kind of a parallel process. We're trying to put together a comprehensive debris removal program. There's so many hazards in there. And if we can get FEMA reimbursement on this, it can be more cost effective, we think, and also more efficient in terms of all the hazardous materials and those type of things that are in there. We don't want to stand in the way of people doing their own thing necessarily, but we're trying to work through how that would all work, where if one property doesn't do it, but all the others do, there's concerns there. So in the next couple of weeks or so, we'll have a lot more detail on how all those things can and will happen.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you, Susan. Next we have Joanne. Joanne, go ahead as soon as we get you unmuted.
My concern was the same as Susan's, in that if this is a community approach, then perhaps, we're waiting for Spanish Hills to get their debris removed before it comes to the Louisville area, or we're waiting for Rock Creek to get removed before we come to our area. So that delays any kind of, movement on our property for that period of time. And I understand the concerns of hazards, but I have no sense, and perhaps you've talked to other communities about how, a joint effort might work. But I don't have a sense, we're all anxious, as I'm sure you are aware, to get our houses rebuilt and get the debris out of there. As Susan's already got somebody who's willing to do it for her. And we have, also feelers out to construction and architects and structural engineers. So we're all jumping right on it.
Joanne, thank you for that. And thank you for raising, there are both sides of the coin, right? And the mayor of Paradise, California, and the mayor of Malibu, California, and the former mayor of New Orleans have all been in touch. And they've been sort of giving me their lessons learned and things they wish they would have done in the first days. And coordinated debris removal that's paid for by the federal government is a big issue. So we are trying to work this out as fast as we can so that you can get back in your house as quickly as possible. We want you back. And so I wish I could tell you that we had it all resolved today, and we just don't yet. And so we're hoping as soon as we know the answer to this debris removal and which route we're going and how the steps will work in the processes, we will get the information to you.
Well, I guess I don't even have a sense of how it's going to work. And so I assume that they've given you some guidance or some knowledge about how the coordinated worked. So you're saying it hasn't been done in those communities and they wish they had done it. And so therefore we're going to be the first ones. And I
we're
don't
not
like
the
that
first.
idea.
No, Joanne, we're not the first. Sorry if I led you to believe that. That's not the case. Some cities had it and some cities didn't. I'm going to turn it over to the city manager to describe it a little bit better.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, and we're still working through all those details. The one thing I
Yeah,
wanted to
I
say,
understand that.
well, this. I just wanted to clarify that this is a number one priority for us. We're working diligently to get this on track and a clarity of how this is all going to work. And I would say within the next couple of weeks, we'll have a lot more information that we can share on this.
So in other words, you're not willing to sort of give me a general idea of how it's worked in the past in other communities. And so I just have to sit and wait for 2 weeks, or do as Susan Nettle perhaps will do and get somebody in there myself.
Joanne, I can tell you at a very high level, but I don't know if it'll answer all your questions. And so in some cases, each individual homeowner has had to do all the debris removal themselves, and pay for it all themselves and contract it all themselves and manage it all themselves. In other cases, FEMA has come in and done the entire cleanup and debris removal. And so it takes, if that is the route that happens, it takes a couple weeks to get all the contracts in place and all the agreements and IGAs in place, 2 or 3 weeks to get all that lined up and assure that everybody agrees on the funding and the reimbursement and how that'll happen. And then you would see deployment of teams to come in and start cleaning up.
And it would be dispersed. I mean, there's a numerous teams. So for example, they're not going to just go to Superior or the Spanish Hills area. So they're just going to have plenty of teams and they're all going to come in and take care of this.
So those are the types of details we're working out.
That's the concept anyway.
That's the concept.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. And thank you for having this meeting this morning.
Thank you, Joanne. Next, we have Michelle.
Hi. Yeah, along those same lines, people in California got very frustrated when they did all of that cleanup and then they were kicked out and couldn't do anything with no information. So I highly, highly encourage you to make sure you're communicating and figure out a plan so that we can still go on site with structural engineers and the like to get processes moving forward. That said, the state call, they were saying something about insurance with the state and that they're going to take components of our insurance proceeds for covering this debris removal and taking it, even though they're not going to do the entire debris removal. I just want to find out exactly what that means. And when you just said about figuring out the funding and the agreement on funding, is that what you're talking about? Because we're all underinsured already. So we kind of need to keep what we've got.
City Manager Durbin.
Sure. One of the things we've begun to hear from the state and FEMA is that with that comprehensive program, if there are specific proceeds from a settlement, insurance settlement for debris removal, that they would look to capture that, but then cover the difference in terms of that underinsurance part. The underinsurance thing is definitely something that we're concerned about and looking hard at.
And I think, Michelle, the question you're asking is exactly what we're working to have the answer to in the next weeks. Like we don't know the exact answer because we have to have it written out and signed and agreed upon and negotiated. Our position is to try to get you all the most resources possible. So every council member is calling every member of the federal delegation and asking FEMA to cover this entire cost. I mean, that if I could wave a magic wand and make that happen, that's the ask right now, is for FEMA to reimburse the debris removal cost on private property. We haven't gotten that yet, so that's what we're all trying to help you. And the point you're making is well taken, and many community members have written in about it. And I wish I could give you the answer today, and we just don't know yet.
Okay, well, just keep that in mind, that the way the insurance companies are handling this is as buckets. So we have a debris removal bucket. And if you don't take out my driveway and I need the driveway to move, I'm going to have a problem later with no money to do that because I already am way underinsured on the project. And that is important. And I think when FEMA is saying that they're going to pay it across the top, I think with the bureaucracy that we're dealing with, what's going to end up happening is pretend that FEMA's max payout is $100,000 to impacted and underinsured. They're going to zero out whatever they're talking about for their costs for this. And instead of it being 100,000, it'll be 60. So I'm just hoping that's not the case, because it's going to leave a lot of us in a very bad position later.
Thank you, Michelle. Did you have any other questions?
A million, but no.
We're going to try to work to get as much information posted as quickly as we can. Thank you so much. And then I see a couple people with hands up that may or may not be contractors or business owners. And I just ask respectfully that you let the residents of the area ask the questions they have. So if there are any contractors or business owners with their hands raised, if you would please put them down. Next, we have Katie.
Hi. All right. I have 3 questions. 2 of them you've touched on. The first one would be the getting people in to do the sifting through, friends getting in, etc. And at the Disaster Recovery Center, there were 3 organizations there, 3 tables, Southern Baptist, another table, and then there was one upstairs that you could sign up with, and they would go in and help you sift through things and do some of the debris removal. I just am looking for some clarity relative to the resources that you brought to the Disaster Recovery Center and the coordinated work that you're trying to do this at the federal level, and the access of these people and our friends to help go sift through to try to find any of our belongings that might have survived the sentimental belongings. I know that's 3 questions, but maybe you can address each of them.
City Manager Durbin.
Sure. On our website, on the Marshall Fire page, you'll find some guidance for doing those type of activities on your property.
What type of activities? There were 3 questions, so let me be a little bit more succinct. Earlier it was asked how to get friends and family in to do some sifting. And so if you can articulate that a little bit more. Number 2.
Let's start with that one.
So getting friends and family in to help you look through your property, that would be handled over the Ascent Church as far as gaining access with a placard system.
And they will be allowed in. So I can bring 10 people, 10 friends, and we can start scouring our site, correct?
So Katie, we are trying to give people access to their property because we can empathize with the position that you're in. It's also a very hazardous area, and we're not going to give you specific advice on how to do something that may be very dangerous. So, we're trying to give you the access and give individual residents the access from an empathetic place, understanding, and we can't set out a process that we know is dangerous. So.
Okay. Number 2 is the question relative to the 3 tables in the Disaster Recovery Center. We're all going to start getting calls from those people to coordinate that. Is that something that we should hold them off on, or is that something we should go ahead and start getting them scheduled to start doing the cleanup? Especially since they're your resources that you brought. I don't quite know how to coordinate between the activities you're doing at the federal level and the resources brought to the Disaster Recovery Center.
Can you just clarify, are you talking about the Southern Baptist folks?
Right, there were 3 tables, and there was a table in the center of the area that was collecting names for people that were asking for assistance for debris cleanup, and there was one upstairs as well.
I'll turn that over for City Manager Durbin.
Yeah, the Southern Baptists are a great resource for, I think, getting in and looking through your property. Just make sure that before you get too far in terms of a lot of debris removal, there are some permitting requirements with the state as far as some of these hazardous materials and so forth. We're working to push out some information about that, hopefully today, to detail those type of things for you. And I just, right now with the snow on the ground, and there's are still hot spots out there, I think that I would really encourage you to think about this not happening this week or this weekend. Wait till you can see what's in there a little bit better, because we're definitely concerned about people's safety. When you have a chance to get in there and see it without the snow, you'll see a lot of broken glass and nails and all sorts of dangerous things. So just a lot of caution is being urged on getting in there too quickly.
Okay. And my last question was relative to liability. We need some guidance relative to people accessing our property that might fall through, think something is stable, fall through. And that's not people that we're bringing. These are people that are uninvited people, that looters, if I may refer to them in that perspective, or as we clean up our sites and our hole is evacuated, there's a beautiful hole there that is very tempting to kids. What is the recommendation relative to how to protect ourselves from a liability case moving forward?
City Manager Durbin?
Sure, I would suggest two things. Well, first of all, we're maintaining those access control points for that very reason. And we continue to do patrols through those neighborhoods looking for people that don't belong. So if there's people in there that don't have placards, well, they won't get in there, first of all. But through the patrols, we're looking for people that shouldn't be there. On the liability piece, I would definitely recommend you talk with your insurance carriers. You can probably reduce your, the valuation you have for the structure if it's gone. But I would still recommend, you talk to them about maintaining some general liability coverage as well.
And what about, I'm personally going to put up signs that say no trespassing personal property, just from a liability standpoint. What about putting up house fencing so that, people would have to legally pass over a fence to be able to get access to our property, which would make a less effective liability case on their behalf.
Katie, if you can hold off on erecting any structures or doing any kind of construction or fencing or anything like that, the planning department will have more information, and we're working on figuring out securing the sites and everything around the debris removal. So I think if you could just hold off. And thank you. And I just want to let folks know, sort of as a process check, there are a lot of hands raised and a lot of questions, and we may not be able to get through them all in this time period. And we will have email for you to write your questions to, and we're dedicated to finding out questions and answers as quickly as we can. And I sincerely apologize that we don't have all the answers today. And I'm frustrated by that, and we are working to get more answers every day. If people could try to limit their questions just so everybody can kind of get their top question out now, and then please email the rest of the questions. Jennifer, you're next.
Hi, related to what we were just talking about, but a little more nuanced. And for those of us whose properties back up onto GHX or the Mesa, we know that people have been walking down through our yard, particularly behind GHX, and we have some concerns about liability, but just about people poking around, and nobody appears to be policing that because they're not coming through the front entrance. And so what is being done to make sure that that's being kept secure and that people aren't just accessing from the Mesa or from GHX?
You need an officer on the GHX driveway.
City Manager Durbin.
Yeah, we're having a conversation yet this morning actually about silt fencing to contain debris within those sites, as well as security fencing around the perimeter of these neighborhoods.
Okay, thanks.
But you don't need a placard to get into my backyard. You should be checking the placard to get up the GHX driveway.
Thank you for that feedback. We'll talk to the chief about that. Thank you for that.
And then can you just direct us to resources? People talked about already talking to builders and talking to contractors. Is there a resource we can go to if you don't have a contact with a contractor? I'm starting to get panicky that they're all going to get snapped up and we're not going to have anybody and we're going to be delayed rebuilding. Are there resources for that?
I'll turn it over to the planning director.
Sure, thank you. So, generally we don't make recommendations for contractors, but we certainly have lists of, folks we work with all the time. I would also just urge you to check with the Better Business Bureau, the Louisville Chamber of Commerce, our Economic Vitality Department. So certainly feel free to reach out to planning@louisvilleco.gov or building@louisvilleco.gov, and we can send you some more specific resources on that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Next, we have Cindy.
Hi, can you hear me now? This
Yes.
is Matt Smith. Cindy's with me. My question was, I know that Enclave was very late in getting unblocked, and even now it still has time restrictions on access. So can you fill us in on what's different about Enclave and maybe the other neighborhoods that are causing this?
City Manager Durbin.
Yeah, we had four neighborhoods that were under what we were calling a hard closure. So all four of those were being treated exactly the same. We had some other neighborhoods where there was less damage, and those were treated as soft closures. So there was different access for homes that could still be occupied and so forth. So as far as the hours of access, between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m., that's daylight hours. There are no street lights in these neighborhoods. There's no lights anywhere in these neighborhoods. There's a lot of debris everywhere. So being in there in the dark is a safety concern. That's why we're looking at those hours.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Thank you very much. Next, we have Johnny.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
First and foremost, hey, Deb, hope you're doing all right. Hang in there. So guys, I'm a lifelong resident of Louisville, and my family here way before that. So, as a backdrop to my question, aside from all the things I did for town, before it became big like it is, I know this area very well. So I really appreciate all of the, after the fact support and accolades, etc. What I'm curious about and frankly concerned about is from where that fire started to the edge of any real metropolis is miles of open ground. And then I look from Costco to the far north side of the Enclave, which is really where it stopped. And there's a lot of things between those two farthest west areas that didn't get burned. So I look at, all right, we may be talking about a mile and a half in total of the far west edge where this thing started and then burned east, that half the town. So aside from the accolades and, all the great work people are doing, I hope somebody's looking at how did that happen? How did that thing jump 2 4-lane highways, many roads? How could we have not have stopped this before the Enclave? Because if you stop it at the Enclave, none of that east of us happens. So, I know it sounds whiny, but in terms of the future, it just seems to me like nothing happened there. I don't understand how this got to the point that it did. So maybe that's a question, maybe it's a complaint, but I think in terms of a community, we need to understand that only so we can root cause and corrective action going forward. Thank you.
Johnny, thank you for that. It doesn't sound whiny or complaining in any way. And the first responders have all committed to an after action on this. And so they're still responding. And so it won't happen right away, but they're going to, go through the cause, the recreation. A lot of things didn't happen, perfectly, and we need to do better. And so thank you for bringing that issue forward. And, we'll have to come up with corrective actions as well. So thank you.
Yeah.
Next, we have Louis.
Hi there.
Hi.
Well, I want to echo some of the things that were said earlier about access. Probably also need to have somebody guarding the open space area to dog park, because you do it over at GSX, it's not going to be, that's great, but there's so many other ways in. And I know Katie Burns' place isn't that far in from that either. My questions relate to the permitting process. How, part of it is, how is the city going to respond for 500 plus homes going through the process all at the same time? I know the city struggled when we had the hailstorm in 2019 or so, whatever it was, that it was a difficult process then, and that was just roofs for the most part. We're talking the entire structures. The other is trying to figure out how the city, is the city going to figure out if we need to pull our foundations out, or do we have to hire our own structural engineers?
I'm going to turn the first part of the question to Lisa and the second part to City Manager Durbin.
Great, thank you very much. So yeah, everyone, I want you all to know, we've already begun to staff up. We have additional staff already in our office this week, and we're going to be continuing to add in the coming days, weeks, and months as you all work through your process, initially through kind of our policy assessments, next through all of our plan reviews as you all develop your plans, and as well as inspectors, so that we can keep all of your projects moving forward in the most efficient way possible. So we've already wrapped up, and we're going to be continuing to do so. I think that was all on the permitting for now, so we'll pass the rest to Jeff.
Could you repeat the second part of that question, please?
It was just around whether they'll need to remove their own foundations.
Oh, yeah, that's something that we've got some conflicting information that it might be a building official call, but it also might be, in some cases, you bringing in an engineer to take a look at it. With the heat that was out there, all the indications are that these foundations are going to have to be removed. And so that's kind of something that we will have to work through with you. If you want to look a little bit more closely, if you have an engineer to confirm whether or not that foundation can be reused. But stay tuned, a little bit more on that probably early next week.
Last question is, why didn't the tornado sirens go off?
City Manager Durbin.
Don't know the answer to that question. I'm going to add that to my list of looking into, because that's something. They weren't tornadoes, but any kind of alerts we can provide is important.
I'll just add a little. I'll just like to add a little bit to that. So the police chief and the team is committed to looking at the evacuation process. There's a number of things that didn't go right, and so we're going to debrief on that. In the beginning, it was really important to get, for example, the Enclave out and to get Coal Creek Ranch out, to get folks that immediately needed to get out of the city. And the entire city was not supposed to evacuate all at once, so that people could quickly get out. And then through Twitter and social media, a number of things got posted for everyone to leave. So there was some traffic jamming. So there were a number of issues and a number of things that went wrong with the evacuation. And so they're going to evaluate that, and we'll figure out what we need to do to correct it.
Thank you.
Next, we have Nelson.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for hosting this meeting. Our house is one of a handful that didn't burn. We're in the Enclave, and we have a lot of questions about safety of being in the area, what we need to do to our homes to make them safe. Do we need to have them, someone come in and do cleaning now? Should we be staying out of the area, out of our house until all the sites are cleaned up? Will we need to have our homes cleaned again? We're just really kind of in the dark about, we're super in the minority and our hearts go out to our neighbors, but we're just trying to figure out what we should be doing.
Lisa?
Yes, thank you. That's a great question. I do think for those of you who have damaged homes, those are generally all going to be kind of a case-by-case basis based on where you're located within the neighborhood and the extent of the damage on your home. And we are happy to work with you immediately on trying to figure out, given your circumstances, when, how, and what needs to happen to get you back home. So again, please feel free to reach out to building@louisvilleco.gov with your address, and we can begin that conversation with you.
Yeah, just adding to that, I'd really encourage you to contact the building department and have them walk through that property with you. that would be a great starting point. We're happy to do that. Also for homes like that, the couple homes standing in the Enclave and so forth, the water system in that neighborhood is still off and will probably remain off for some period of time because we've got a lot of open connections and a lot of, you can imagine all the meters that are gone and all the open water lines. And so we've been working to shut off all those properties, but that operation is a whole nother story as far as that water system. So we'll tee up some kind of a communication to those folks specific to the water system in those neighborhoods.
That's great. That was my other question, is if we would have water, but the answer is no. Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And not yet is the answer. We're not there yet. Next we have Tina F.
Hi, my question is the liability. I would like the city to be aware of, the city manager mentioned that you will secure the wood fencing and something during the debris cleanup. I'd like to put on your agenda, once the cleanup is completed and you do put up fencing, what happens after that? When does the security start, goes from the city to the property owners? My concern with the liability is I have a 10-foot pit on the property. So Katie mentioned about kids playing. I could see Louisville and Superior becoming tent city. Okay, we have open holes that will be cleaned up and safe after the re-cleanup. And if I'm someone living by the creek in Mortal City, and I've got this nice pit for me to live in, I'd like you guys to keep that on your list, please, to go forward planning and think what happens when we clean up everything. Who could get access to the property? Tent city.
Thank you for the feedback, Tina.
Okay.
Next we have Pritchard. I think it might be Chris. Hi, Chris. And we're getting you unmuted. You might be muted on your end.
Hi, Deb. Hi, Lisa. Hi, Ashley. Chris Pritchard, 1125 West Enclave Circle. My question centers really around council. Recently, council unanimously approved changes to the building code surrounding sustainability. This is news to all the insurance agents, and it is news to the insurance companies as to the additional costs that these new actions taken by council will have on our efforts to rebuild. What I need to know from you, Ashley, is city council going to look at whether or not they will implement those recently changed building code restrictions, or are they going to plow ahead with this sustainability, which right now will cost at least 30% to everybody's rebuilding costs? You guys did this, you did it without public input, and I need to see what you guys' positions are in terms of these recently approved code changes.
Thanks for the question, Chris. I'm sure it's a question council is going to take up. Lisa mentioned at the beginning that we're going to look at that. I would just add for the folks listening, we did it as a public process. We always keep up with the most recent building codes. We've updated our building codes probably 6 times since I've been on council. So we adopted the most recent building code in October through a public process, but it is something, we're going to talk about our building codes. We're going to talk about our permitting processes at a future date. So we are going to talk about it.
Can I make the suggestion that as a city, you reach out to all the major carriers and notify them, because these appraisers were not aware of these changes that were just recently implemented, and it will have a direct impact on everybody's ability to rebuild because the costs, some people are underinsured and do not have that built into their policy. And again, so if council can look at reversing that procedure, at least until we get out of it, because I don't think anybody on council realized that we'd be looking at a basically equivalent of rebuilding a fourth of the town.
Chris, we're happy to reach out and talk to them. And I guess I just can't commit at this time to know where council will go on that. We do have building and safety codes that change all the time. Like I said, back when I first got on council, fire sprinkling got added. The building code changes all the time. And so we'll have that discussion at council, and I don't know where it'll go. And it looks like City Manager Durbin has some comments.
Yeah, just an addition on that, there's a lot of other code updates that have happened over the years. Some of these homes that were built some time ago, there may be a whole series of code updates. I know that some insurance carriers have a rider for code updates or upgrades or something to that effect, and some are included. So that's something that all of you should talk to your adjusters about, as far as all the building codes.
But but Chris, we can absolutely reach out to the insurance carriers and make sure they understand as of today where the building code is.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Sasson.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So my understanding is that earlier, the first couple of days after the fire, there was a series of press conferences being held. I was just curious if you were going to continue holding those, or if that was just while there was more internet or national as well as international attention on this fire. Thank you. I just found them an incredibly useful way to gather the latest information. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, the press conferences that the sheriff's office was coordinating with the emergency was really for the emergency situation, to try to get as much coverage as possible. The best place for all that information is that Marshall Fire link on our city webpage. Lisa, can you repeat that link so people can make sure they have it?
Sure. So www.louisvilleco.gov/Marshall-Fire, all one word.
And on that page, there's a place to sign up for e-notifications and things like that. So we push out all the most up-to-date information to the emails that sign up for that. So if you'd like email updates, please sign up. Thank you. Next, we have Pete. You might be muted on your end.
Unmuted on both ends. I'm not sure if the microphone is functioning.
I apologize, Pete. I think there might be a microphone issue on your side. Please email the Planning and Building Department whatever question you have, and we'll work on that. Next, we have Masood.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. First of all, Debbie, I'm really sorry about your house. I am a neighbor. So my question is, I have two questions. A, so they closed Highway 36, and as a result, all the traffic in Boulder got redirected to South Boulder Road. So even though my wife and I were trying to leave, the South Boulder Road is a parking lot. So if you're trying to evacuate the city and the Boulder businesses are all closing because Highway 36 is closed, you need to do something about that. Number two, there were no sirens, as we all discovered as well, but there is other resources nowadays to inform people of emergency. One is reverse 911 call, and the other one is social media. Except our city has extremely poor Wi-Fi internet. 5G essentially was useless because they have so few bandwidth that even if you tried to inform the citizens, you couldn't. And that's because we have relied on a private company who's refusing to do anything about it because city doesn't put any pressure on them. Okay, so as a result, even if you try to inform us in other ways, we can't do anything. So I would like to know what your plans are. In addition, many people have switched their phones to be Comcast, and as soon as the power went out, those phones were useless. So essentially, you had no way of communicating emergency situation to your citizens. And in addition, you created a scenario that we couldn't even leave.
Thank you for the feedback. I mean, we agree that the evacuation did not go in a way that we're proud of or happy with, and we need to evaluate it, determine exactly what happened and what didn't happen, and then improve. So thank you for the feedback. We agree with you. Next, we have Anne.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Our property is in Hillside Lane next to the Enclave, and we do back up to the GHX property. I just wanted to express again our safety concerns, as we have people posting pictures that are from our backyard who have no business being there, and that the dog park is now open, allowing people to walk down the mesa, not just driving up the back GHS Parkway. So just expressing again our great concern, sharing fence line with the Enclave, that area is absolutely not secure. Thank you.
Thank you for letting us know. Next, we have BJW.
Hello?
Hi.
Hey, thank you. I was going to ask again if you could post the email that we need to email you directly, or give that to us again.
Yes.
And
do you want me to do that?
That'd be great.
Okay. So it's Marshall Fire, all one word, 2 L's, at louisvilleco.gov. And our call line phone number is 720-824-3100.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I think we have time for just one more question. And so I apologize for any people that haven't been able to get a question in just yet. And so please do email us your questions to that Marshall Fire email. And call us. We do want to know all of your questions and work through them. And again, I'm sorry for not having all the answers just yet. The last question goes to Susan. Oh, it looks like
Sorry,
Susan.
it was remained
Remnant hand.
to somebody else. I goofed. Sorry, I already asked, but thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Last one goes to Cindy.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify again, I think a lot of people have actually kind of hit on this, but it was our neighbors who helped us all get out. Our friend Carol Neslin was the one that actually went around our neighborhood honking her horn and knocking on people's doors because the fire was in her backyard when she came to our house. So she left her house, came and helped all of our neighbors, and then she went back to her house. And I just think that's really important to recognize that it's not necessarily the city that helped us out. I'm sorry, but it was the neighbors who helped us out. And the other thing is, if you guys can in any way help us with insurance policies claims, I feel like we could collectively become a group and get some of these claims processed much quicker. If there was some weight behind it, maybe even Polis and the insurance commissioner of Colorado. One specific thing that I'm thinking of is that they're going to try and get us to itemize every single item of personal property. And then they're going to try and take off for depreciation from those items. And they're trying to already kind of play their insurance game and not allow us to have what was in the policy as stated. This policy is total loss of personal property, and we all have total loss of personal property, unless of course your house didn't burn down and you have partial loss because of smoke damage, which I get that may be that they may need to do the partial inventory, but there's nothing left. So it is not partial, it is total loss. And they're already starting to play their game and trying to get us to create a list of every single thing is in every single drawer of our house. We all know that there's no way we can actually do that. Our memories are not good. We are all have been through trauma. We are still going through trauma. We're in a hotel in Broomfield, and we got evacuated last night at midnight because the smoke alarm went off. We had to stand outside for a half an hour last night with our cats while it was snowing and 0 degrees outside. The trauma is continuous, and it's ongoing, and it's not going to stop for even after we get our houses built. I don't feel safe. I just can't, nobody, I know that we're all going through this, but recognizing that this trauma is going to be there for a long time is, I think, important for all of us to know. And I think that you guys can help us, but I'm actually not hearing you guys how you're going to help us. You keep saying things like, go over to the disaster area and get help there. We're here for you, but what are you doing? I don't hear it. Just because you're putting out some trash cans for the garbage that's been spoiling in people's refrigerators, that's not that helpful. Unless you're going to give it to some farm animals, great. But so I'm sorry I'm being a bit aggressive, but I would like to see how you guys are helping. I want to see how you guys can help me with my policy and get everything possible that I'm entitled to. And I'm sorry, the other last thing is that if you guys are going to refer to just the women by their first names, then I would suggest you refer to Jeff by his first name.
Thank you, Cindy.
It's very condescending to be referring to Ashley and all of the rest of the women as their first name, but Jeff gets to Mr. without his first name even being mentioned, which is a problem for me.
Thank you. So nothing we can do will ever be enough, and I recognize that. And I just want to tell you some of the things the staff and city are doing. So like the Disaster Assistance Center, the city staff were put together. So bringing in all those resources, Megan, who's on this call, really got that stood up in record time. It's not enough. We want to do more. I just want you to know, like, we're working on all of these things for you. Like the Division of Insurance is there. We're trying to bring all the right resources to the table to get you what we can. And so we're going to keep working on that. But we're coordinating, and we're part of bringing the resources that you see so far here, and we're going to keep working on it. And it's not enough. And I take your points, and I really appreciate it. And we're going to keep working to improve. And I'm just, to everybody on the call, the entire city council, the entire city staff, the entire community, really, truly, the Denver metro area, state and nation, like, people recognize how awful this is, and that we need to be here, and that we need to get our community back. And so we're going to keep working on it, and we're going to rebuild and get through this together. And there's going to be dark times, and we're working on making sure mental health resources are available, and that we're really here supporting each other. So people are just fine to be angry. There's a lot to be angry about, and we're going to work through it and try to get to that place where people have the things they need. So thank you. And it looks like the city manager, Jeff, has something to say.
Yeah, Mayor, I just want to remind you that since there's a lot going on, you're managing this whole meeting, but remind you of a conversation that you had with Governor Polis about the Division of Insurance and asking him to use their resources at the state to help us ensure that our residents get their fair settlement. So, and he committed to that. So I have a note about reaching out to them and finding out how we can share concerns like this with them. But you did make that request from the governor, and you did make that commitment. So just a reminder there.
I just thank you, Jeff. And I just don't want, so in part, like, we're trying really hard to balance like things people have put on paper, pen to paper, that I can show you and commit to, and things that we're working on. So we are working on your behalf and trying really hard to get as many resources to the community as we can to help you all. And we're going to keep at that. And I also recognize it's not enough, and that we need to keep at it. So thank you to everybody. And we are a strong community, and your neighbors and friends and, classmates and coworkers want to help you. And so we're going to get through this. And please do email the emails that we listed and call the contacts that we listed so that we can work on getting more information to folks and get things out there as quickly as we can. Time is of the essence, and we all recognize that. Thank you for joining today. Oh, and we'll let Councilmember Fahey close us out. Deb, you're muted. Sorry, Councilmember Fahey, you're muted.
Okay, thank you. I do want to thank everyone on staff and you, Mayor, in particular, for all of the work that's been going on. We have done a lot to try and get through this process, and we're going to continue. And for anyone in the Enclave neighborhood, I will remind you that I'm having an in-person meeting at the library on Friday night at 7 o'clock. The downtown meeting room. If you have any more questions or need any more information, we may have some more answers to questions by that time. But just to get together and share stories and hugs and just connect with everyone from the neighborhood, I really encourage you to show up for that. Thank you all.
Thanks, Councilmember Fahey and Deputy City Manager David.
Yeah, I just wanted to just remind people that there is a community, there's a meeting tonight, a community meeting across the entire fire area with Boulder County, the city of Louisville, and with the town of Superior. And there will be some additional information there, more speakers from FEMA, Disaster Assistance Center, Boulder County Public Health, Office of Emergency Management. And so it's from 6 to 8 p.m. You can find more information on the Marshall Fire website that we shared with you. And I really, you know, we heard what the last speaker said, and this is such a difficult time. And I just want to thank you for spending your time giving us your experiences so that we can help respond better. I have taken very detailed notes. We have another staff that's taken very detailed notes, and that's because we want to be responsive. So I know this is a hard time to get on a call and share this, but thank you for doing that, because this can only help us help you and help us, you know, improve the way that we can support you all.
Thank you very much. And we'll be talking to each other a lot. And so we'll see you soon.